Okay, now we're going to talk about story maps, how to create an Esri story map. They're not hard to find. Just Google story maps and click the link. Okay, you will need an Esri account, and if you have signed up using that Google form on Canvas to get access to ArcGIS Pro, you already have this. You just need your username and password. So in this first video, we're going to talk about adding images, basically creating the story, adding images, adding content, how to preview and publish your story map. In a second video, I'll show you how to add maps. It's a little bit more complex and actually very cool. And then how you can embed your story map into your Google site so it can be a part of your portfolio. Okay, so getting started, you can start a story or add a new story, and it launches. Now this is the new Esri story map builder. There is a classic story map builder, and you're welcome to use that as well. I don't have any preference. Okay, so first we're going to come up with a title, and I think a lot of this should be easier than if you were just cold turkeying it, because you've already built the DEM content on your Google site, so you can copy and paste a lot of that, or at least rework it, but you're going to want to put it into a really kind of elegant and professional format here. So details of digital elevation, and like this. What goes into the creation of elevation models and how it all affects, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so I've got a start here. You can add cover images or videos. You can change the design of this by just clicking the design tool and format this kind of opening here. You can also change colors like this. I'm just going to leave it for simplicity's sake. Let's see, what else might you want to know right up front here? Adding a cover image. So I've thrown some images into a folder here that I can use for simplicity's sake, if I can click correctly. All right. So it's very drag and drop and very simple. So here's how you start adding content. These content block buttons, just look for these, and if they aren't visible, just click, kind of left click in a panel somewhere. So you have the option of adding text boxes, buttons that kind of highlight a navigation link to something else, ways to organize the page, and then, like I said, you can insert interactive maps, which I'll show you in the next video, images, videos, audio. You can embed things from other sources, and a swipe feature, which I'm going to show you next. But these immersive are kind of the fun ones. These are the ones that give you kind of a fun way to lay out your page. And I'm going to start with the Sidecar. Floating panel or docked, I'll show you what this looks like. And hopefully you've already looked through some other story maps, so you have a bit of an idea about this. But this is kind of how this works. It's you add an image, and then as you scroll through it, your floating content pane moves like that and kind of gives the viewer the idea that they should keep scrolling. So I can add images here, or maps, as you can see. I'm going to add my DEM comparison. And then one thing to know is that it kind of defaults to, actually let me go back and show you. It goes back to stretching to fill the panel here, and I want to change that so that it's not stretching, it's fitting. I don't want to crop the image. I want to see the whole thing. And then this is where I would provide all the context for the image you are seeing. And this is the stuff that you can take directly from your website. And again, panel appearance, horizontal position, size, you can update all these things, and you should. So really the work this week is done as far as the analysis and the write-up, which is great. This week you're really going to focus on professional presentation of your results. You might want to add another content block talking about some of the images you're seeing here, or like I was saying with the redoing some of these images, maybe you want to make some comments right on the image, add some text blocks in maybe PowerPoint or something like that, and then resave this image with annotations, or maybe you want to put some highlights on here, but you're going to need to do that in a separate software and then resave the images and put them back up on Storymaps. Okay, so that's a sidecar. You can continue your story down here, and let's look at the swipe feature. Swipe might be really important for you guys because you're basically showing us DEM differences and resolution differences of the same area. So what I did here is I exported my hillshade from my 5-meter autocorrelated and saved it from the LiDAR. So it's the same scale and extent. And then we can see them side by side and swipe across them, which is pretty cool. So yeah, like you can see here, here's my swipe tool. So on the left, I've got the 2-meter LiDAR, and on the right, I've got my 5-meter autocorrelated. And again, you might want to draw attention to some of these areas that are really different in the two images, and you'd want to use a text block to explain why. So here you've got sizes, and then again, I don't want to crop, I want to show my whole image. And I can expand it. So here's my swipe tool. And you can see this is what we were talking about before. This is that kind of interpolated surface on the 5-meter autocorrelated DEM that probably comes from a thick patch of vegetation. For whatever reason, the surface couldn't be detected here, and so it's just kind of a smoothed surface that doesn't adequately model the actual ground. And there's some more of them up here if you look up here. A lot of smoothing right here where we lose that ridge line. Okay, so that's the swipe tool. And then we can go back and add more content as we need to, adding captions, explanations. Oh, drag to reorder. So reordering these things is pretty tricky, and I've had a hard time working with the reorder. I have Googled it, and they said they added reorder features in May, but this isn't always present. So if you have issues reordering, you can dig around and see if you can find a way to do it, but I just had to delete my block and put it where I wanted to and start over, which is pretty easy. But you can see what I mean, where they're not always visible. You kind of have to hover around to find these places that you can add things. Okay, I'm going to let you play with these. A slideshow is just going to bring up, well, actually, it gives you an explanation of what it is, but it's going to bring up one big panel here and then arrows that help you click through, which might be really helpful, and it gives you the option to have a content block of text where you could just have that sitting there as the person clicks through the slides. So this is what this week is about, is developing all of this content and teaching people about elevation models and everything that you discovered last week. Okay, it's good to know that you can preview what you've done so that you're not in editing mode. You'll see it as the public will see it, and you can make adjustments that way. Go back to editing. The other thing that's important to know right here is how to publish this thing for Reels. So if you go to publish, you're ultimately going to want everyone, public, to view, and you need to do this when you go to embed this in your Google site, or it won't show. So you do need to switch this to everyone and then publish. You can keep it private until you get it well dialed in, of course. But once you get it published, then you have a usable link here that you could share as a link, and then you're not in edit mode, which is good. You don't want to be sharing links to an editing. Okay, that's kind of the nuts and bolts of how to build this thing. There are resources on Canvas to help you dig into some of the details a little bit. And now I'm going to share with you some details about how to add a map.